Tell them, Richard, about when you first went, you were taken in the first time, and the belting that you got, and the roughing up you got. Tell them.
You mean the police station?
Yeah, no, not in the police station, in the prison, when you were finally taken to the prison and they were waiting for you. You're out of the van, through the door, and suddenly, bang.
Yeah, well, we were told to strip, and there was some prison clothes thrown at us. And I was told to stand on a scale to be weighed. So I stepped on the scale, and the next thing, my face was smashed into the wall, like, you know, from behind. It was standing right against the wall, like, you know. And hell just broke loose, like, you know. It was screaming. There were screws come running in from everywhere. There were hordes of them, you know. And we started running. We didn't know where we were running, like, you know. We just ran wherever there was an opening, like, and try and get through it. But they came at us from every direction. They were lashing at us with their fists or whatever they had in their hands and their boots and everything else, like, you know. And then in one place, there'd been a door left open, and we went in. There was a cell, a large cell type room, a couple of benches on it. And we lay down on it. And Jerry says, if this keeps up, we're all dead, like, you know, because we were all bleeding from all over the place, like, you know. And then a screw run in, and he says, come on, get out, you bastards, get out, like, you know, a load of foul language, like, you know. And we were out again, and it was on, off again. They were there waiting for us, like, you know. And it was pretty horrific, like.
And this was truncheons and hands?
Oh,
and
anything they had. Like, we got the lot.
I can't remember a truncheon, but the hands was.
We were getting.
After we left this room,
battered.
we went onto the wing, and they were waiting for us again as both prisoners and prison officers. And there was a general melee. They were all beating us, punching us, kicking us, and we tried. The stairway was very narrow, the stairwell, you know, and we tried to get up. We were fighting among ourselves to get up the stairway to get away from them. As we've gone up to the top, I think we turned right, and there's more officers there, and they're kicking us and punching us, and we're running along. We don't know. We're dazed. We're shocked, terrified, and they're putting us into each individual cell. And the doors would bang. I was in the last cell. Paddy was facing me on the other side. And I remember I could hear a door opening. Everything went quiet down for about 10 minutes. I heard a door opening, more shouting, more language, screaming. This went on. The door closed, another one opened. Until then it came to my turn, and the door opened downstairs for a bath. We'd run through a gauntlet of prison officers. They're all wearing white coats, short white coats, and the same thing. They're beating us, punching us, kicking us, spitting on us, calling me all the names. Got a bath. The bath was ice cold. It was also black, the dirt. We had no shoes. I had shoes for 3 days or something. And it was full of hair. Our hair was pulled out. It was also full of blood. And ducked in the bath. 2 seconds, that was my bath. Straight out, clothes off. They threw a towel at me, and I had to run naked up through these officers again, back to the cell. And I stood there for, must have been another 6 hours. They wouldn't let me sit down. Doctor came round in about an hour, opened the door, said, what's your injuries? And we're standing there. He took half the, what the bruises he took was caused by the police. What was running with blood and whatnot, he just ignored, didn't want to know, because he knew it was caused by the prison officers, you know. And if he had done his job right, we wouldn't have done the sentence. It's as simple as that.
Correct.
In the time, eventually, both the prisoners, the other prisoners who had been referring to you as stinking Irish bastards and all the usual things, and the prison officers, it began to get easier, eventually I'm talking about. But during the very rough time, during the time you're talking about initially, was there any one prison warder who showed any feeling for you or kindness?
In Windsor Green, yeah. I got 2 actually. One was in Windsor Green in the initial days, which was pretty rough. When we slept out, you know, you go to the recess, you've got your washing bowl, you've got your water jug, you've got your chamber pot, and all these things to carry, and you can only make one trip. And you had to do it on the run, on the double. Didn't you? And we couldn't spend more than 3 minutes in there, and we were shouted at all the time. And never been in prison before. We thought everyone was experiencing the same thing, but it wasn't so. But this prison officer, I'll never forget him. I know his name and all. I'm not going to mention him. And he come up to me and he says, "Look, son," he says, "take no notice of me." He says, "If I shout at you, it's because of the rest of these people." He says, "I don't mean it." And that stayed with me throughout the years, you know, and it's made a great impression on me at the time.
Just one?
Yeah, and one in Guard 3. In fact, he just wrote to me 2 weeks ago. In fact, he wrote to Chris Mullen here, and Chris relayed the letter on to me, and he's offered me down to his home, because he always thought I was guilty in that, you know, or innocent, sorry.
Innocent,
yeah. And he's wrote and he says, I'd like to meet you again, your kids and that, and your wife and children. And I've still got the letter, and who knows, someday I may get down to see him, you know.
Why do you think, was it just because he thought you were innocent, or was he just a...
Well, we had a great rapport in the prison in Guard 3. This was, again, in the early stages, from 75 to 78, you know. And, I mean, there's plenty of officers after that, but... Of
course, but I'm talking about the rough time, when everybody was against you. There was just one then. Two. Is this the same two for you, Richard?
Yeah, everywhere you go, you'll find at least one, like, who would go against the grain type of thing, like, you know. He couldn't do it openly, but he would say something too when there was no one else around, like, you know. He'd pass certain remarks, like, you know, and he was trying to be friendly type, you know. And well, really, at the beginning, we didn't know who we should trust these people or not, like, you know. So I just blanked them all, like, you know, because after what had happened to us, like, you know, was so horrific, like, you know, I thought, well, none of them, these people can be trusted. Doesn't matter what they say, like, you know.
I've heard you talking...
I tended to ignore them, like, you know.
Yeah. I've heard you talking now several times in interviews and so on since you came out, and I can't get over the lack of rancour and the lack of bitterness in you.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's no sense in feeling hatred or bitterness or carrying it around with you, because the longer you carry it, the more you're going to affect yourself and the people around you and the people you love, because it begins to expand and the people can feel it when you're talking to them. It's not a thing you can switch on and off like a tap. You have to get rid of it. You know, you got to stop. You got to start thinking. You start relating to people as people. You got to start looking for the good in people, you know. And if you don't, like, you're only going to destroy yourself.
Is this religious in origin,
or? When I went into prison first, I lost any religion that I had, you know. I got it back eventually, but I had a long, hard struggle, like, you know, to get back to where I was, where I had been.
And how did that happen?
Well, it was because I realised what was happening. I was so bitter, you know, and I knew what I was doing. When I went on visits, I couldn't turn this off, so my family were beginning to feel this coming through from me, like, you know. It wasn't directed at them, but as I say, you can't switch it off, and they can feel it as well, like, so I was upsetting them, like, I finally realised that, well, I got to stop this. And I knew what I was doing, like, you know, so I tried to stop it. I tried to pray. And it was very, very, very hard, like, you know, I couldn't pray at first, like, you know, because I'd been going too long. But after a struggle, things began to ease off, and I slowly got back to normal again.
What about you, Paddy?
I've seen a lot of people in jail, and you find them in every jail, and people are very bitter and twisted, and you can't get a 2 minutes conversation out of them, you know. They haven't got a good word to say about anybody or anything, and what we used to say to each other and the others, like, there but for the grace of God go I. Me, I'm the practical joker out of the six of us, like, you know, I like to have a good crack and a laugh, and I'm the sort of person that won't be down for long. But to see some of the people going around in jail that are bitter and twisted, no, it's like a disease. It eats you from within, and there ain't nothing, they're only a shell. Me, I made a rule from the start that I was going to prove my innocence. And I made a rule also that I was going to try and come out more or less the same man as what I went in. I knew that when I come out, it was going to be three things different. I was going to be a little bit older, a little bit sadder, but a hell of a lot wiser. And that's the way I've come out of jail, you know. And thank God, like, well, for all of us, there's none of us angry. Like, I've heard people pass remarks about what I said outside the Bailey. They said it was very angry, very forceful. Maybe it was, but then again, the truth is always forceful. Angry, yes. Why shouldn't I be angry? I've had to sit in the prison cell for 16 and a half years and see them just take my life away for nothing. And they used us. They told us from the start that they knew we hadn't done it. They told us they didn't care who done it. And they told us that we had been picked. And they said that they had us and that was good enough. As long as they got convictions, they're happy. And keeps the public off their gaffers back and their gaffers off ours. They come in and offered me bits of paper to sign. Nothing on them. Told me, sign there, we'll take care of it. We go and get your wife, your kids, we bring them down to you. No. They weren't interested in justice or nothing, you know. They just wanted bodies, and that's what they told us. Not only that, when they were battering and torturing me, they told me, they pointed like that, and they said, we have orders right from the very top to do what we want with you. As long as we get a confession out of you and your name on a bit of paper, that's all. And that's exactly what they done. And they done it with impunity, you know. And we ain't the only ones. There's loads of people in jail, but the degree of brutality and torture against them couldn't be levelled at the police. The same as been levelled in our case, you know.
What about you, Jerry? How did you survive?
The same way. I realised, well, say after 5 years or so, that if I was bitter, there was a certain amount of bitterness. I got anger, yes, frustration, obviously. I couldn't go on like this. I couldn't go on with this bitterness towards the police and that, and I had to accept that it would only destroy me, and I accepted from an early stage, as I say, that the only way I'm coming through this is to forgive them, which I've done.